Hey everyone, it's Angela with FoodStorageAndSurvival.com, and today we are making fruit leather with some plums. Now, fruit leather is a fantastic project for dehydrating fruits. Kids love it, love, love, love it. My kids will just eat this stuff about as fast as I can produce it. So we try and make it and then hide it so that they're not eating it all right away. But you can use the fruit that is a little overripe. If you're canning fruits, you want them almost ripe or a little under so that they hold their shape really well when they're canned, once they go through the processing, that heat process. But when you're making a fruit leather, it's okay if they're kind of mushy and soft. And so this is a great way to use up the excess fruits, the ones that are not as perfect and not as pretty and maybe a little overripe, to be using for some of the other food processing procedures like canning. All right, so let me show you what you're going to need. You're going to need some fruit, and like I said, we have plums, and these are plums off of my plum tree. This is the end of them, so we are down to the ones that are not pretty, and they're kind of a little squishy. They might be a little overripe. These are Santa Rosa plums, and unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention when I planted this tree 10 years ago, and it's a clingstone plum. So they're really kind of obnoxious to work with, but I have them, so we make it work. You also will need a dehydrator, and mine's an Excalibur dehydrator, and I really, really love it, but you don't have to splurge for this. You can use any dehydrator that you've got, and it will still work. All right, the next thing you also need is a food processor, and mine's just a mid-range Hamilton Beach, and it's been good for me, so we just keep using that. And then you either need your some type of non-stick tray to put your pour your fruit leather onto. So if your dehydrator came with fruit leather trays, use those. Mine had a couple. I have no idea where they went. I've had this thing, I don't know, lots of years, probably about 15, 16 years that I've had this dehydrator. So the fruit leather trays, I only had a couple to begin with, and I have no idea where they've ended up. So what I do is I take the tray and, ooh, that's shiny. I put nonstick foil on it. So it's wrapped around the plastic part of the tray, the inner part of the tray. Anyway, so you can use nonstick foil. You can use, I've used saran wrap before, and that works okay. But when it heats up, it tends to tighten up, and so sometimes it'll stretch and warp your trays a little bit, and just kind of makes the fruit leather kind of wonky, but it still works. It's all good. It just, you don't want to put that on tight because it will shrink up when it starts getting hot. This nonstick foil is great, but it's really, really great for one use. If you try and reuse it, you might have some stickage. So swap those out if you do another batch. All right, let's get started. I'll show you how to make your fruit leather. All right, I pitted and chopped. Well, they kind of chopped themselves as I got them off the pits. You normally don't have to do any chopping. Just get the pits out, get the stems off, and make sure you cut off any bad parts as you're doing that. So whatever fruit you're using, make sure that it's just fruit in there. Peels are fine. If you really want to peel your fruit, go ahead, but peels are okay in this because you're just going to chop it to death. Now to this, approximately one bowl full, this is all just kind of to taste here. So to one bowl full, I add a tablespoon of lemon juice, and that is just to help preserve the color. And then I add 3/4 of a cup of corn syrup, and that's for sweeteners. So this is totally optional. You can put this in if you want. You cannot put it in. It's pretty tart with some of these fruits without adding a little bit of sweetener. So you can use corn syrup. You can use regular sugar, white sugar. From what I've read, it can tend to crystallize and make your fruit leather not quite as pliable. One reason that I'm using the corn syrup. You can also use brown sugar or honey or stevia or whatever you want to use if you want to sweeten it. So like I said, this is all to taste, and I've tested this one out. It's about 3/4 cup with these plums, and the apricots were the same. But if you were doing a sweeter fruit like strawberries or peaches, you probably wouldn't need quite as much sweetener in there. Okay, so we get that added, and then we're going to blend it up until it is nice and liquidy. Okay, we've blended that up. It's a nice thick liquid. And then we're going to pour it on our tray. When you pour it on the tray, you just don't want it to fall off the edge. So pour kind of towards the middle. And what we were going for with the liquid is it's going to be thick because it is just fruit, pulverized fruit, and the sweetener in there. So I like to push it to where I want it, and it usually just stays there. You don't have too much run with it. If you get it a little thicker at the edges than in the middle, then as it dries, the edges won't get too crispy. But, okay, I don't have quite enough here. I haven't measured how much goes on here. It does go on fairly thick. Like, wipe it to the edges, make a nice little rectangle out of it. Just kind of even it out, and that is ready to put in your dehydrator. Any thin spots are going to dry a little faster. Thicker areas might take a little bit longer. All right. Okay, now we're going to load it into the dehydrator, and I dry mine at 135 degrees for about 12 hours, and we are in a fairly dry climate, so your mileage may vary on that. You might need to dry a little bit longer. And then by the magic of TV, right, magic of YouTube, we're pulling one out that is already done. And I'll show you how that comes off and what we do with it next here in just a second. All right, the next step is to get this off of the foil or the whatever your tray was that you used, and make it so that you can store it. Now, one little thing is if you cooked it too long, if it dried too long and it got crispy on the edges, just leave that on the trays. And if you're in a humid environment, it's going to soften up a little bit as you leave it there. Or you leave it on the trays and then you do some canning, or you do some cooking of soup or something that puts humidity into the air. Run your swamp cooler, anything that kind of humidifies your air, and then your fruit leather is going to soften up and be able to roll again. All right, now this is the second time on this foil, so hopefully it'll peel off okay. So before I peel it off this foil, what I do is I lay a piece of plastic wrap down on the counter next to it. Because I'm going to transfer this from the foil to the plastic wrap. Oh, that one came off nice. So there you have the fruit leather. Okay, and this is just so that I'm able to store it. So I lay it on the plastic wrap there. Kind of try and get it on flat. It's tricky because everything's a little bit sticky. And then I roll it, and I like to roll it the short way because after I roll it, I cut it, and then that way the pieces just aren't quite so long. I get more of them. I get more pieces. My kids will have a few more, even though volume-wise it's the same amount of food. Okay, so roll it up like that, and then it is ready to store. You can store it like this, or just a second, let me grab one here. What we normally do is to cut them, and I just use my kitchen shears and cut chunks off like so. And it's a little hard. It does give your hands a workout to cut them off, and then they're ready for the kids to eat. Little fruit leather rolls. All right, there's your making of fruit leather with plums. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I will answer them. And you can always catch more from me on my blog, foodstorageandsurvival.com. Thanks.